The computer screen glowed faintly in the dimly lit room, casting long shadows on the walls covered with colorful posters of superheroes and space adventures. Amid the quiet hum of machines, a 5-year-old boy named Ian sat on a swiveling chair that seemed far too big for his tiny frame. His small hands darted across the keyboard, moving with an ease that would baffle even seasoned tech professionals. Ian wasn't like other kids his age who spent their time building Lego towers or chasing each other around playgrounds. His playground was the digital realm, where lines of code became his toys, and endless possibilities sparked his curiosity. It all started innocently enough. Ian had been gifted a toy laptop on his 3rd birthday, a device meant to teach the alphabet and basic math. Within weeks, he'd cracked open its programming, not to break it, but to enhance it, creating new games and features no one imagined the little device could handle. By 5, he was writing code on real computers, building apps, and delving into the intricacies of cybersecurity. His mother, a single parent and a hardworking nurse, often marveled at his abilities, but she had little time to fully grasp the extent of his talents. One rainy evening, while tinkering with a new project, Ian stumbled upon a cybersecurity forum. There, a post caught his attention. It was a challenge of sorts, an encrypted message claiming to protect secrets so well guarded that even the best hackers in the world wouldn't dare attempt to breach it. The boy's eyes lit up. To him, it wasn't just a challenge, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. What Ian didn't realize was that the system he was about to probe belonged to one of the most influential companies in the tech industry, a multinational conglomerate led by a reclusive and enigmatic CEO named Zayn Malik. Zayn was known for his genius-level intellect, his secretive demeanor, and his relentless pursuit of perfection in everything he did. Rumors swirled about his past, how he had risen from obscurity, seemingly without a family or history, to build an empire that touched every corner of the tech world. But beyond his public persona, Zayn was a man shrouded in mystery, with secrets buried so deep that even his closest advisors knew little about his personal life. Unaware of the magnitude of the system he was entering, Ian began his work. The complexity of the firewalls and encryption excited him more than intimidated him. It was like untangling a vast web, each strand a new discovery. Hours passed as the rain outside turned into a storm, the sound of thunder mixing with the rhythmic tapping of keys. Then it happened. Ian bypassed the final layer of security and found himself staring at a folder labeled Project Legacy. He hesitated for a moment, a rare flicker of doubt crossing his usually confident mind. Curiosity won, and he clicked it open. Inside were files, photos, documents, and voice memos that told a story he couldn't yet piece together. But one detail stood out, making his heart race. There in the middle of the screen was a picture of a man holding a newborn baby. The man looked eerily familiar, even though Ian couldn't quite place where he had seen him before. It was then that Ian's mother walked into the room, her voice snapping him out of his trance. "Ian, it's late, and you should be in bed." Startled, he quickly closed the screen and looked up, trying to mask the confusion and excitement bubbling inside him. "Okay, Mama," he replied, his voice quieter than usual. She gave him a suspicious glance, but decided not to press further. Little did she know that her son was on the verge of uncovering a secret that would change their lives forever. As the night wore on and the storm subsided, Ian lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The man in the photo haunted his thoughts. Why did he look so familiar? And why would such a powerful company keep a picture of a baby in its most secure files? Ian couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled upon something much bigger than he could understand. Meanwhile, miles away in his towering office, Zayn Malik sat alone, reviewing the day's reports. His usually composed face grew tense as an alert flashed on his screen. Unauthorized access detected. With a few swift clicks, he traced the breach back to its source. His eyes narrowed as he read the location, an unassuming suburban home in a quiet neighborhood. Interesting, he muttered under his breath, a mixture of annoyance and intrigue flickering across his face. He tapped his fingers on the desk, considering his next move. Little did he know that the young intruder was someone who shared not just his brilliance but his blood. The stage was set, and the clock was ticking. What would happen when the tech giant and the prodigious hacker finally came face to face? And how would Ian react when he learned the truth about the man behind the firewall? The answers lay just out of reach, waiting to unravel in a story of genius, secrets, and a bond that neither of them had anticipated. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains as Ian sat at the breakfast table, stirring his cereal absent-mindedly. His mind was still fixed on the image he had seen the night before, the picture of the man holding the baby. Something about it tugged at him, like a half-remembered dream that wouldn't let go. His mother, humming softly as she packed his lunch, noticed his unusual quietness. "What's on your mind, Ian? You're not usually this quiet," she asked, glancing over her shoulder. "Nothing, Mama," Ian replied quickly, forcing a small smile. But deep down, he knew it wasn't nothing. There was something strange about that folder and the man in the photo. He felt a pull to go back, to dig deeper. Yet for the first time, he also felt a twinge of fear. At the same time, in a towering glass building downtown, Zayn Malik was piecing together his own puzzle. The breach had been unlike anything his security team had ever seen. Clean, calculated, and astonishingly fast. What baffled him even more was the source. His team had tracked it to a residential IP address belonging to a single mother with no known connection to the tech world. But Zayn wasn't fooled. Someone in that house had skills that rivaled the best in the industry, and he intended to find out who it was. Later that day, while Ian's mother was at work, a sleek black car pulled up outside their modest home. Zayn stepped out, his tailored suit and calm demeanor exuding authority. He knocked on the door and waited, his mind racing with questions. But when the door opened, he was taken aback. Instead of a tech prodigy or a seasoned hacker, he found himself face to face with a child no more than 5 years old. Ian looked up at the tall man with wide, curious eyes, unsure whether to be scared or intrigued. "Hello," Zayn said after a brief pause, his voice steady but softer than usual. "Is your parent home?" Ian hesitated, glancing behind him before shaking his head. "Mama's at work. Who are you?" For a moment, Zayn was at a loss. How could a child like this be connected to the breach? But then he noticed the faint glow of a computer screen in the background and the faint remnants of code still visible on it. The pieces started falling into place, and Zayn felt a strange mix of admiration and disbelief. "I'm someone who's curious about the work you've been doing," Zayn replied carefully, crouching to meet Ian's eye level. "Do you know how special you are? What you've done is something very few people in the world can do." Ian frowned, unsure whether this was a compliment or a warning. "I didn't mean to do anything bad," he said quietly, his small hands fidgeting nervously. "I just wanted to see if I could solve it." Zayn's heart clenched. He saw something of himself in the boy, an unrelenting curiosity and a mind that worked faster than most. But there was something else, too, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Before he could say more, the sound of footsteps approaching interrupted the moment. Ian's mother had come home early, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene before her. "Who are you, and why are you talking to my son?" she demanded, stepping protectively between Ian and Zayn. Zayn straightened, his composed mask slipping back into place. I'm here to discuss an incident involving your home network. May I speak with you privately? He asked, his tone polite but firm. Suspicious but curious, Ian's mother nodded and led him into the small living room. Ian, of course, wasn't about to miss out. He quietly followed and sat at the edge of the couch, his legs swinging nervously as he listened. Zane explained the breach in vague terms, careful not to alarm her too much. What happened was highly unusual, and I believe someone in this household might have accidentally accessed sensitive files, he said, his eyes flicking briefly to Ian. His mother's face turned pale as she looked at her son. Ian, what did you do? She asked, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to do anything wrong, Ian said, his voice small but steady. I just saw a challenge online and I wanted to try it. I didn't know it was important. Zane could see the worry in the mother's eyes and decided to shift his approach. Your son is incredibly gifted, he said gently. What he did wasn't malicious. It was pure brilliance. But the files he accessed are part of something very personal to me, and I need to understand why he was drawn to them. The room fell silent. Ian's mother looked at Zane with a mix of confusion and fear. What kind of files? She asked cautiously. Before Zane could respond, Ian spoke up. There was a picture of a man holding a baby, he said, his voice trembling slightly. It felt familiar. Zane froze. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He had buried that photo deep, thinking no one would ever see it again. But now, this child, this boy who shared his intellect and curiosity, had unearthed it. And for the first time, Zane allowed himself to consider a possibility that had always seemed too far-fetched, too painful to confront. He looked at Ian closely, his mind racing as he pieced together details he hadn't noticed before. The shape of the boy's eyes, the subtle tilt of his head, the way his mind worked. Could it be? The tension in the room was palpable as Zane finally asked the question that had been clawing at the back of his mind. What's your full name? Ian hesitated, glancing at his mother for permission. She nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. Ian Malik, the boy said softly, the name hanging in the air like a thunderclap. Zane's world tilted. The walls of his carefully constructed life seemed to close in as he realized the truth he had spent years avoiding. This boy wasn't just a prodigy or a hacker. He was his asterisk son. The revelation left everyone in the room reeling, and for a moment, no one spoke. But the storm brewing inside Zane's heart was nothing compared to what would come next, as the tangled web of secrets and lies began to unravel, threatening to destroy everything they thought they knew about each other. The room felt heavy with unspoken words as the realization sank in. Zane stared at Ian, his mind replaying every choice he had made. Every moment he had convinced himself that leaving his past behind was the right decision. His heart ached as he looked at the boy, so full of life and potential, yet burdened with questions he didn't even know how to ask. Ian, sensing the weight of the silence, fidgeted nervously, his wide eyes darting between Zane and his mother. "You're my father?" Ian asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Zane knelt in front of him, his usual calm replaced with vulnerability. "Yes," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I didn't know. I didn't know you existed." His gaze shifted to Ian's mother, who was standing frozen, her face a mixture of anger and sadness. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked her, his tone pleading rather than accusatory. She crossed her arms, her voice trembling as she spoke. "You left, Zane. You walked away from us when I needed you most. I found out I was pregnant after you disappeared. By the time I tried to reach you, you were gone. Your name changed, your life erased. I thought you didn't want anything to do with us." Zane's chest tightened. He had left that life behind, convinced that cutting ties would protect him from the chaos of his past. But he hadn't realized what, or who, he was leaving behind. Now staring into Ian's curious eyes, he knew he couldn't walk away again. "I made mistakes," Zane admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "But I want to fix this. I want to be here for you, for both of you." He looked at Ian, his expression softening. "You're extraordinary, Ian, and you deserve to know the truth." Ian's mother hesitated, the protective walls she had built around her son wavering. She could see the sincerity in Zane's eyes, the weight of his remorse. "This isn't just about you, Zane," she said firmly. "It's about Ian. If you want to be part of his life, you have to prove it." Zane nodded, determination replacing his guilt. "I will, whatever it takes." Over the following weeks, Zane worked to earn their trust. He spent time getting to know Ian, discovering more about the boy's incredible mind and boundless curiosity. They bonded over coding projects, creating small apps together, and sharing ideas that left even Zane in awe of his son's brilliance. For the first time in years, Zane felt a sense of belonging, a connection he had long since thought impossible. At the same time, Ian's mother watched cautiously, her heart torn between hope and skepticism. But as she saw the genuine effort Zane put into rebuilding their fractured family, she began to let her guard down. Slowly, the walls between them began to crumble. One evening, as the three of them sat together at the dinner table, Ian turned to Zane with a shy smile. "Do you think I could ever work at your company one day?" he asked, his voice filled with excitement. Zane chuckled, ruffling Ian's hair. "Work at my company? Kid, with your skills, you might be running it someday." Ian beamed, his small face lighting up with pride. For the first time, he felt like he belonged, like he had a place in a world he had always found too big and complicated. But the story wasn't just about reconciliation. It was about rediscovery of family, of purpose, and of the bonds that can withstand even the deepest fractures. Zane realized that his success meant little without the people he cared about to share it with. And Ian's mother, who had spent years raising her son alone, found herself slowly forgiving the man who had once walked away. In the end, it wasn't a perfect family. There were still wounds to heal and trust to rebuild. But it was real, and it was theirs. As they sat together, laughing and talking about their plans for the future, the weight of the past began to lift, replaced by something lighter, something hopeful. The camera pans out, the glow of their home warm and inviting, as Ian leans over to show Zane his latest coding project. "You'll never guess what I just built," he exclaims, his voice full of excitement. Zane smiles, his heart full for the first time in years. "Show me, kiddo," he says, leaning in, ready to see the world through his son's brilliant eyes. The story closes on that note, leaving the audience with a simple but powerful message. No matter how broken things might seem, it's never too late to find your way back to the people who matter most.